Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
He needs care and treatment.
You are now listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Daryl May Remax Partners on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Is this a great country or what?
Locking down the middle of the day, live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Appreciate you hanging out with us here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Going to shift some things around a little bit today. We'll have Sharief Ishaq from WDSU 30 minutes from now talking about the Saints kind of setting sail into the offseason with the black and gold. So looking forward to that conversation with Sharief. Denton Day, usually with us on Mondays. He's going to be with us coming up at 2:15. Talk about the college football playoff. LSU and South Carolina on the hardwood tonight in the Assembly Center. I've got to preview that up at louisianasports.net. You can also tune in 1 hour from now, and I'll talk about this one. It's not a must-win for LSU because I don't ever overuse that term. It's a really, really, really need to win for LSU tonight in the PMAC against South Carolina. We'll talk about it. I want to talk about the transfer portal, obviously, to start things, and then I want to talk a little bit more about what's gone on in the last, call it 6 days. So let's crank this up with Portal Editions the way we start every day.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
They're coming fast and furious at this point. LSU's gotten a couple of commitments in the last hour and a half. Got one just after we left the air yesterday. So let's talk about the newest additions to the LSU football program. It starts with Trey Brown. Trey's a wide receiver from Old Dominion. He was a junior college prospect that ended up at Old Dominion. Another wide receiver that comes in that's got really good size. Look at Jackson Harris, who they got from Hawaii, who's 6'3", and you look at Trey Brown, he is 6'2", 180 pounds, and you look at Old Dominion and you go, well, it's a smaller school, and then you look a little bit deeper, which is probably a more indicative barometer as to what kind of prospects you're looking at. Trey Brown's two chief suitors in the transfer portal were LSU and Ohio State. So you realize what kind of season he put together there at Old Dominion. It was a good one. He showed himself to be a big play threat. He ended up with 762 yards and 4 touchdowns on the season. And I thought one of the most interesting things was just how many yards per catch he averaged. 20 yards per catch. It's explosive, it's speed, it's size, and it's a guy who really at times outclassed some players at that level. And for him to get the attention of Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss and George McDonald, and then to get the attention of the folks at Ohio State, that tells you just how talented this guy is. Now, LSU needs to add at the wide receiver spot, no question about it. You look up at wide receiver, and there's slim pickings at LSU. You had about 5 guys left. You signed 3 in the high school class. How much you want to depend on those guys, we'll see. You think Jabari Back's a really good player, and you trust Lane Kiffin's evaluation on some other guys, but you had to add some talent. So immediately you go get some guys who were older than 20, who were 6'2", 6'3", who had monster numbers in terms of their yards per reception at Hawaii and Old Dominion. But I trust Lane Kiffin and this staff to evaluate. You're talking about a staff that went to Louisiana Tech and found Trey Harris, and he was the best wide receiver in the Southeastern Conference. So it's an ad that is not going to be anybody that you've ever heard of, but I trust this group to find offensive playmakers, and so Trey Brown is next on the list. The 2 ads today have been the first defensive ads for LSU. It started with Boise State safety Ty Benefield. I really like this one. I'm not going to pretend to be a scout, but I'll tell you just how I evaluate these when I see them. I like production. Like A.J. Halsey just had a ton of production. So many tackles, so many interceptions, so many tackles for loss. He did it at New Mexico. He did it at Houston, and he did it at LSU. It's nice to see former 5-star recruit or former 4-star recruit or former top 50 player. It's nice to see that this guy signed with Clemson out of high school, which we'll get to in a second. But I kind of like guys that just do a lot of producing. And Ty Benefield does a lot of producing. Ty Benefield was the All Mountain West first team this year, had over 100 tackles for Boise State, had a pair of interceptions. As a sophomore in 2024, he had 2 fumble recoveries, which was tied for first in the Mountain West, which is why they listed first. But he started all 14 games. He led the team in tackles with 82, led the team in interceptions with 2, played a team-high 1,070 snaps, played 900 snaps on defense, played a bunch of snaps on special teams, had a bunch of 8 and 9 tackle games. He is just a productive player with really pretty rangy size at 6'2", 205. If that's a guy that you can put 10 more pounds on at 6'2", 215 with that kind of production, he's not afraid to go down there and make tackles. He's not afraid to make plays on the ball. This feels like a really good add on the back end of LSU's defense. And safety now becomes a spot for LSU where you've got significant talent and significant depth at that position. And it's one of the only places on the entire roster where you can say that. Tamarcus Cooley's coming back. Deshaun Spears is coming back. Jace Thomas and C.J. Jim Kohler are coming back. You've got Jacob Bradford on the roster as well. That's 5 guys. You add Benefield. That's 6 safeties. Cooley and Spears have played a good bit, and, of course, Benefield has played a ton at Boise State. So you can move one of those guys down to star. I think there's a lot of internet scuttlebutt that Benefield might move down to star, play where Harold Perkins was. He's dynamic in that way, not afraid to crash down on the run, certainly can defend on the perimeter as well. And I think if you want to move Tamarcus Cooley down there to play a little bit in the nickel, you can do that as well. I don't know that safety is going to be a huge position of emphasis in the portal. You always look if there's a guy that you think you can add, and you add. But right now, I think that the resources are probably best spent elsewhere. This is, in my estimation, a really good add from a proud program and a guy that is going to fit into this defense with Jake Olson and Blake Baker really, really nicely. The next add is one of the guys who is more so on talent as opposed to monster production. He certainly played a lot, but has not been like a dominant player by any stretch of the imagination. It's Stephylan Green. Stephylan Green comes from Clemson. He is a 6'4", 290-pound redshirt sophomore. He just finished his redshirt sophomore year, so he'll be a fourth-year junior next year. He was a part-time starter this year with Clemson. He started his first game ever actually against LSU and made 6 tackles in that game against the Tigers. He was a second-team freshman All-American in 2024. But it's not a stat sheet that's going to blow you away. And most defensive tackles don't blow you away statistically. But he's played in 24 games at Clemson. He had 6 starts this year at Clemson. He's made a total of 34 tackles over 2 seasons, basically. He played in 2 games with no stats in his redshirt year. But over the 2 years where he was a player in 22 games, he made 34 tackles. 14 of those were solo. He had 5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks. But I think most importantly here, he's a guy that you know can play at this level. He's a guy that you know has the measurables that you're looking for. And he adds depth at a spot where you had your depth hurt a little bit. You lost Jacobian Guillory and Bernard Gooden to eligibility, and then Ahmad Bro decided to leave. So you've got Don McKinley, and you've got some other guys in there, and then you've added some really good freshmen to the crop. But Stephylan Green is a 4th-year player who's played 2 seasons in the ACC, who's played against you, who's handled himself and been a struggled to get away from the word force there. He hasn't been a force. It's been a serviceable piece in the middle of a quality defense. Okay, that's a guy that you can bring in. And so this is like back of the napkin stuff here that is so far away from finalized, I wouldn't even try to sell you that bill of goods, but just work with me because a lot of this is very easy for you, whether you're driving around or listening via podcast or working out or wherever you may be. Like this, a lot of these names you'll know, so you kind of get a sense of what Blake Baker's defense looks like right now. I'm aware. It's January the 6th, okay? So we got a long way to go to Labor Day. A lot of players are going to be added, and, you got to see how things shake out in the spring and into fall camp and whatnot. But this is kind of what the framework looks like right now. Up front, you got Gabe Relaford. You got Don McKinley. You bring in Stephylan Green. I think you've got Dylan Carpenter, C.J. Jackson. That's kind of your front right now. Then, I mean, I'm not mentioning guys that are certainly in the mix right now. You've got guys like Kalaj Cobbins, and there are other guys, but like that's your front 4 right now as I look at it. Gabe Relaford, Don McKinley, Stephylan Green, and then probably Dylan Carpenter or C.J. Jackson. Like that's up front. But then when you back up from the front, this is where it starts to kind of look pretty solidified, barring huge talent influx. Like in the middle, Tylen Singleton, Whit Weeks, Devon Keys. You got Zach Weeks. You got all these young linebackers, Charles Ross. But right now, Tylen Singleton, Whit Weeks, Devon Keys. Like you saw that this year, they're back. Woodland and Pickett on the corners. They're back. Then you've got that group at safety with Cooley, Spears, and now Benefield. That back seven, Singleton, Weeks, Keys, Woodland, Pickett, Cooley, Benefield, Spears. I think LSU could go out there and play Clemson tomorrow with that group and feel good about you having a quality secondary and linebacker group. And that's a comforting place to be, considering the massive upheaval just about everywhere else. Like your whole offense has got to be remade. You've got depth pieces to add for sure. And I'm not putting Lamar Brown in this discussion right now. I'm not putting Richard Anderson in this discussion right now. And that may be okay. I don't love to lean on true freshmen on defense, especially up front. But like, you look like you've got some really nice pieces. You just need to add depth. You got to add more on the defensive front for sure. And I would imagine Corey Raymond will have his eye out. Like that's something that there are a few things you can kind of like bank on in this roster management world that we live in. But like, as I look at Corey Raymond, he's going to pull up that transfer portal and he's going to find the dude. And then he'll call the dude and say, hey, dude, here's where the dudes come play where the dudes come. And I just feel like that'll happen. I don't have a name. I don't have a date. I don't have a visitor. I don't have any of that stuff. I just have a track record. And I feel like the next Mansour Delane, maybe not an All-American and Thorpe finalist, but the next top premier player on the corner is going to show up. Like you're getting Haven Finney and Jakeem Jackson's back, and like you have some numbers there, but I just feel like if I'm looking at what they may add on the defensive side, that may be it. So that right now is where we sit. It would not surprise me, considering I've been talking for 12 minutes and not refreshing Twitter or looking at our website tracker on LouisianaSports.net. There might have been another commitment in the last 5 minutes, but I don't know that there has been. That's kind of where things rest. Now, with that said, I've gathered a general sense over the last 24 hours, based mainly on stuff that's going on in Oxford and not Baton Rouge, that people are getting a little antsy. And I just kind of want to speak to that situation and what's happened over the last 6 days. So we'll take a time out. We'll come back, and we'll do some of that when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
First American Bank and Trust. First American Bank and Trust. If you're looking for a residential loan, First American Bank and Trust. You're looking for a commercial loan, First American Bank and Trust. So why would I look to First American Bank and Trust? Well, it's pretty simple, because they've got that community feel. They're born and bred right here in Southeast Louisiana. That's where they are. That's where the decisions are made. The people that work in this bank are the people that you walk with every single day in your community. And they have the resources. So you've got the customer service, the relationships, the community feel from First American Bank and Trust, but you've also got the resources that allow them to have 25 branches across the southeast part of our state. That's why you work with First American Bank and Trust. When you call them, you don't get somebody in Chicago. You don't get somebody in Seattle or Atlanta. You don't go through those kind of channels. No, you talk to somebody that goes to church with you. That's who you talk to when you talk to the folks at First American Bank and Trust. When a decision is made on your residential loan or your commercial loan, it's made right here in Southeast Louisiana. Contact my friends at First American Bank and Trust.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
We'll talk Saints with Sharief Ishaq coming up in 13 minutes. Looking forward to that conversation, kind of seeing what Sharief thinks about the offseason here for the Black and Gold as they finished up on Sunday with a loss to the Falcons that we talked about yesterday that was maybe disappointing to the Saints fans in the moment, but it's gonna pay come next fall, I think, at least. So we'll talk about that in 15 minutes. For better or for worse, I'm online. I'm online a lot. I help run a website. We have a YouTube channel. I got a Twitter account. I'm online. I see a lot of stuff. A lot of folks say, well, I got to kind of get away from that. Like, I can't really do that. I'm online. And over the last 48 hours being online in LSU world, there's been a lot of pessimism. There's been a lot of angst, been a lot of disappointment, and I think some lashing out. And I just want to put some things in context here as I see them. Certainly, you don't have to jump on board with me, but I'm here to give my opinion a couple hours a day. Yes, it would have been great if Trinidad Chambliss was playing quarterback for LSU next year. I don't have a problem saying that. In the world where quarterbacks follow coaches all the time and players trade schools all the time, and you have access to lots of players every single January, like the thought that Trinidad Chambliss may go with Lane Kiffin to LSU was incredible because you see how well Trinidad Chambliss has played this year. And so having that guy as LSU's quarterback entering the Kiffin era would have been fantastic. Same goes for Kejuan Lacey. And you know that Kejuan Lacey has an incredibly close relationship with Kevin Smith. And you feel like when Kevin Smith makes his decision to come to LSU, there's a good chance that Kejuan Lacey's going to follow, right? And that sounds awesome. On the same hand, you're helping your football program with those two guys, and you're hurting Ole Miss, who's on your schedule. And so that all sounds great. And then it doesn't happen. Those two guys decide to stay. And if you want to look at that, just kind of lay it out sequentially, it makes a lot of sense. Look, these guys just took the field in the Superdome and won the biggest modern game in the history of Ole Miss football. I was in the Dome that night. The shot of life that went through that fan base when that field goal went in was unlike anything anyone on that side of the Superdome had ever experienced. Period. This is a point in time that they have not lived through. We have in Baton Rouge. We will not feel like that again in football or baseball for decades, if ever. Basketball here, we could sense that, but not football or baseball. And they're sensing it right now in football. And so they're doing this, and they're going on this run, and the portal's open, but LSU can't negotiate with them because they're with the team, and the collective over there can, and they got that thing worked out. And, hey, why go through the best season in the history of Ole Miss football and then immediately become the villain at the place that has brought so much joy to so many people? Like, it makes sense that they would stay. I get it. And I understand why LSU fans are ticked off. And I think it's reasonable. I can't present it as fact, but it's reasonable to suggest if Ole Miss loses that game to Georgia by 18 points, that a lot of folks transfer out. Because, okay, we went to 11-1, awesome. Okay, we beat Tulane, who stinks, great, whatever. And then we lost to Georgia. We're the same as we always were. Okay, whatever. And then maybe some guys transfer out. Maybe not, but probably so. But they didn't. They beat Georgia. They've got a chance to win a national championship. So they're going to focus on that. And it makes sense that the Ole Miss folks who are experiencing this, that they've never experienced before, are going to open up their checkbooks like they never have before. They are on a high right now in Oxford, Mississippi. And they're not just going to let everybody come in and raid that on cue. So it all makes sense if you just step back. Now, let me present the purple and gold side of this. Let me present the LSU side of this, because I think this gets lost in a tweet that says Kejuan Lacey's not coming to LSU for one season of football. When Lane Kiffin left Ole Miss to come to LSU, an era started. Okay? The 2026 season is just one of the seasons. Now, it may be the only season. There may be 14 seasons. I don't know. But this is one season where Trinidad Chambliss will not be your quarterback and Kejuan Lacey will not be your running back. You're going to have Harlem Berry at running back, who's a 5-star, the former number 1 running back in the country. And I think you're going to have Sam Levitt as your quarterback. I promise you, the era has not been derailed because two kids who play football for Ole Miss decided to keep playing football for Ole Miss. I promise it is not going to derail the era. And everyone's saying, well, I thought Lane Kiffin was the portal king. Like, where are the commitments? You got what? You got a wide receiver from Old Dominion and one from Hawaii? That's it? I thought this guy was the portal king. It's been 3 days. Like, it's been 3 days. You don't sign 30 kids in 30 hours, okay? And even so, this is the first year. Nothing that has happened over the last 72 hours is going to make or break LSU football. You broke it Halloween weekend when you fired the coach and the athletic director and said, okay, we got to put this all back together again. And then you hired the guy to put it back together. Not the 2026 team specifically, the program. So what did he do? He hired his Ole Miss staff on offense that have been prolific in Oxford. He kept the defensive coordinator who's revamped the LSU defense and his staff that has a lot of skins on the wall. And then a lot of guys left. Some of them probably left because they liked their old position coach. Some of them probably left because they just wanted to see if there was more NIL money available. Some of them were probably told to leave. But a lot of guys left. And now they have to sign a lot of guys. And it's going to take some time. Ole Miss is not putting LSU in a body bag, I promise. The head coach that helped build Ole Miss to the greatest heights it's ever seen is currently in Baton Rouge, okay? I promise LSU's not in a body bag. And two kids who are damn good football players, who I would have loved to see in purple and gold and not in blue and red, decided not to be there. Guess what? This time next year, neither one will be in Oxford either. It's not like you let a 10-year NFL franchise quarterback get away. He was available for one fall, and he's not coming. It's not the end of the world. So if you're an LSU fan who is losing his or her mind because you had two commits after a couple of days and you see Ole Miss is getting kids from there and Alabama's getting kids from there and Ohio State's getting kids from there, what are we doing? And what is Lane Kiffin doing? Just relax. This is a 3-week process for the first iteration of LSU football under Lane Kiffin. I don't know if I beg of you, I suggest to you to relax with the doom and gloom stuff. LSU is positioned really, really well. They've got a really good coach, really good offensive staff, really good defensive staff, a lot of resources, and they got a lot of kids to come to campus over the weekend. They are still a very attractive place. And they're going to get a lot of players. They've gotten 2 today. I think Sam Leavitt is going to be the next coming up here soon. And they're going to push off the dock, and they're going to keep adding guys, and they're going to put a competitive product on the field. You did not hire Lane Kiffin to steal Ole Miss's roster and win the national championship in 2026. You hired Lane Kiffin to run the football program. And sometimes when you're running a football program, you have eyes on a recruit or a portal prospect, and that doesn't work out. Then you go to the next one. So when Trinidad Chambliss said, I'm not coming, and Sorsby said, I'm not coming, you got Sam Leavitt in town. And guess what? He may tell you he's coming. So I realize in this internet era, everybody wants to just jump quickly to the next thing and jump quickly to the next tweet. And there are national folks that are going to beat down LSU's door. Make no mistake about this. LSU is the villain right now. Lane Kiffin is the villain. We lived this world with Will Wade for a few years. You're going to live it with Lane Kiffin because everybody from a national talking heads perspective is going to tell you that the guy who walked out on Ole Miss because he couldn't win a championship there and they might win it without him looks foolish. And that's a fine take to have. I don't even disagree with that. But hey, I'm thrilled he's here. I think LSU's a great job, and I'm more concerned with what LSU does in the portal and on the field next year than what Ole Miss is doing in recruiting with its own roster. Okay, I'm not concerned that LSU didn't get the 3 guys that are staying at Ole Miss or going to Ole Miss. Carius Kern committed there today, signed there today. I'm concerned with what LSU's doing, and they're gonna make progress and they're gonna get some things done. Just give it a little bit of time and realize this. The national talking heads are going to bash LSU. They're going to do it because they're going to want to bash Lane Kiffin because this whole thing's going on. Miami wins by 21 on Thursday. It probably shapes the discussion a little bit differently. But right now, Ole Miss is the toast of the town because they've got the interim coach and they had their coach walk out on them and they've got the startup quarterback from D3 and they've got the running back who decided to stay and be a legend in Oxford, and they're the toast of the town. LSU's not. Generally speaking, LSU winds back up there towards the top. That's Lane Kiffin's goal, and I think he's going to get there. How quickly? I don't know. Would I bet on it this fall? Probably not. But he's going to get this program moving in the right direction because he's won everywhere, and he scored points everywhere. And he didn't need Trinidad Chambliss to score points. He scored points with Jackson Dart, and he scored points with Matt Corral, and he scored points in Florida Atlantic, and he scored points with Blake Sims and Jake Coker, and I think he'll score points with Sam Levitt. I just got to take things down a notch with the freaking out over everything that goes on every single time there's a commitment. You're putting a team together. You got some portal commitments in. You're going to get a lot more over the next couple of weeks. Just deep breath here and there. All right, that's a look at LSU in the transfer portal. We'll come back, talk some Saints with Sharief Ishaq next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
I love telling you about Marucci every single day. Go tour it. Go tour Marucci. You're talking about one of the coolest gyms in Baton Rouge. 2004, backyard shed. Let's make a bat. Let's make some more bats. Well, then you turn around 20 years later, and it's the official mat of Major League Baseball. They're making $1,200 a day over there at Marucci, and you can tour the facility and see how they do it. See how they produce some of the bats that are on the biggest stage in baseball, in Major League Baseball, with some of the biggest names in the sport. And it all happens right here in Baton Rouge. So if you got a youngster or you just are curious, get on by and see them. You go to MarucciSports.com, click on Campus Tour there, and you can set up an opportunity to roll through there and see how they make the official bat of Major League Baseball. It's right here in Baton Rouge. It's the Campus Tour over at Marucci. Check them out at MarucciSports.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Tigers in South Carolina tonight on the hardwood. Big one for LSU after a loss at Texas A&M. South Carolina might be the worst team in the SEC. We'll talk about it in 30 minutes to preview that one. 6 o'clock tip from the Maravich Center tonight. Let's talk some Saints. Sharief Ishaq, WDSU, down in New Orleans. Good enough to give us a little time here on this Tuesday. Sharief, how are we doing?
I'm good. My mouth is in place. I have all my teeth, so I'm good.
I'm glad to hear both of those things. That's very encouraging. I want to talk about the defense as we get into the offseason here with the Saints. Who was the most encouraging young player you saw on this Saints defense in 2025?
I feel like it depends on what you classify as young, Hunt. Do you classify Chase Young as young? Because if that's the case, then he'd be in the conversation. Because technically he's only in his, sixth year, so he's a young veteran. Maybe you can classify him as a very upside player, but I'm going to consider him a young veteran. So in terms of young players, man, I mean, I'm just thinking about it. I mean, I do really like Quincy Riley a lot. I like Quincy a lot, man. I think there's so much potential with he and as well as Jonas Sanker.
Those are probably the two that came to the forefront so quickly. As the Saints look to kind of overhaul things and spend some money, I think a lot of that focus has got to go on the offense. But how comfortable are you with Sanker in the back end, with Reed in the back end, with Riley and Alontae Taylor and Kool-Aid? Like, how do you feel that all works together at the safety spot and the corner spot?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see because you mentioned Alontae's name. He's a free agent.
Right.
So let's see if they bring him back. What's the price point on bringing Alontae back? Because I think that it's going to cost them a little bit of money to bring him back, and I think they've been working on that contract for 2 training camps, and they haven't been able to get anything nailed down. So that's going to be an interesting one there. But I mean, Hunt, I still think they would be good to add another cornerback. To me, that's just my opinion. I think they need to have some depth back there. I'm not saying a superstar, but it'd be good to have another young player that they can throw back there. Young player, young veteran. I still think they can use a little bit back there in terms of that secondary. I'm okay with linebacker. I'm okay with it for now.
Does Danny Stutzman's role grow?
It's gonna grow tremendously. It's definitely going to grow tremendously. I think it all depends on if DeMario wants to come back to the Saints. Like I said, it's always about money when you get this late into your career. So does he come back? I mean, I'd be surprised if he or Cam don't come back, to be honest with you, and finish their careers there because everything is trending in the right direction. I like the defensive line. I mean, they really amped it up a whole bunch as the season closed out. So it doesn't ever hurt to add another player in the secondary. I think it would benefit them to add another player at cornerback or slot corner, just to have depth. I mean, you know how injuries happen to this team, but I'd be more comfortable if they added another a cornerback in that secondary.
How much credit do you give Brandon Staley for what you saw from this Saints defense? Because it kind of bottomed out last year at the end of Dennis Allen's time, and then once he was fired as well. And then with not a ton of new players, some, but not a ton, they were significantly better.
Oh, way better, Hunt. I mean, way better. I mean, you thought that they were going to bottom out even more with Brandon Staley because of the pieces you gave him, but he molded those young players and molded some of those young veterans and pieces and made them better. And that's been that's been the best part of Brandon Staley and how he connects to those players and how they all bought in and how he just got them in the right place and took advantage of it. He and his staff did a really good job this year, Hunt, in getting those players in much better than the worst ranked defense in the NFL. They're going to finish top 10 in the NFL. I mean, that's outstanding, not to allow a 300-yard passer the entire season. I think they finished 5th in passing defense. That's pretty good. I think they finished 9th in scoring. That just says that the job that Brandon Staley did was just amazing considering where they were last year at this time.
You mentioned DeMario and Cam, and I think that's where the discussion's got to go next, a little bit deeper. What's the entirety of that situation, and how do you feel about those guys and what kind of investment the Saints should put into them if they decide to put any investment at all?
You know, I understand the logic of you need to get your young players more playing time. By signing them, that kind of hampers them. But which young players are behind Cam Jordan? There really aren't many. It's good to keep the continuity with a player who's still got gas left in his tank, who's productive, and who's a leader on and off the field. And the same with DeMario Davis. As you can get him for like a nice 1 year, maybe 2 year contracts that aren't really that could be kind of front loaded and they don't hurt you long term. That's fine. If you go 2 for 12 and $8 million up front, I'm good with it. I mean, you need to continue having those veterans as your young players continue to develop that are actually on the team. So I'm good with it. I'm good with those guys because they've been productive. If they weren't productive, I'd be like, you know what? Thanks for your time. You guys have done a lot of great on and off the field here. Maybe just go see what they have out there. I guarantee you that the Saints may say, regardless, they may say, hey, go see what there is out there and come back to us. I can see that. But I also, just talking to Cam yesterday, it feels like he doesn't want to go anywhere. And the same with DeMario. He did say, I don't know what the next chapter is going to bring in terms of DeMario, but Cam said he had a discussion with his wife on the flight back after the Atlanta game. She gave him the green light to keep playing. And he doesn't want to be anywhere else. He has said that a million times.
And what a season. I mean, guy found the fountain of youth. She had a double-digit sack season. I would have bet a lot of nickels against that for sure. All right, I guess we'll switch over to the offense for a couple minutes here. We know about Ishaq, and we know that they've got to add at wide receiver and get healthier. Where are you on the offensive line right now for the Saints team? Because that's obviously got to improve as well, and you've got a lot of young players that you've invested in there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's always a topic of discussion is keeping that line healthy, and Ishaq was scrambling around for his life in these last few games, making it work, but he made it work. I understand that. Like, that's why you need these types of quarterbacks in today's game, just because you never know what you're going to have with the offensive line. My biggest question mark is Eric McCoy. Can he avoid having a catastrophic injury? That's back-to-back seasons where he's missed a ton of games because of one injury. Did they start looking for a future, center, someone backup center? They have Luke Fortner, but do they feel comfortable with Luke Fortner behind Eric McCoy? You know how important a center is. He makes all the calls and the blitz pickups. So that's one question I wonder. And are they going to draft another offensive lineman? They've drafted an offensive lineman 6 times in the first round since 2015.
Yeah.
Mickey and Jeff Ireland love that stuff. They love drafting offensive linemen. Or do they finally say, hey, we need playmakers? But, man, look, they need to find guards. They need to find guards in a bad way. I mean, I think they're set. They're set with Kelvin. They're set with Kelly S.A. And if Eric can find a way to stay healthy, they're set there. They're 3 positions, but they need to find guards, huh? They need to find them in a bad way, whether it's free agency or second, third round draft picks. They need to do it. I think free agency is going to be like the route to go in terms of a guard, even though this draft has some depth at guard, but I think free agency would suit them best to bring in somebody that would have some experience that'll help out Tyler Shuck.
All right, kind of last thing on this season, then we'll fully be in the offseason, and it relates to the division as a whole. The thought was that, hey, Atlanta's going to take a step forward this year with Penix. Hey, Baker and Tampa are really towards the top of the NFC, and neither one of those happened. And Carolina won the division, and I don't think anybody thinks that's a world beater, and they got to make a decision with Bryce Young. So, like, does the state of the division give you confidence in where the Saints stand right now?
Yeah, and you could argue that Tyler Shuck might be the best quarterback in the division. I know some people are like, you're crazy. It's only 9 games, and he didn't play against the tough part of the schedule. But I'm just basing it off potential. And his potential seems much better than Baker Mayfield, Bryce Young, and whoever in the world the Atlanta Falcons are going to throw out there next year at their next head coach. So I like it. I mean, the division is a mess. It's up for grabs every single year. It's going to be a mess moving forward. If all these teams are keeping these players together, you feel like, all right, well, the Saints, they're young, they're rebuilding, and it feels like, oh, man, I know it was 6-11, but it feels like the confidence and optimism is there because of what you saw in the back half of the season, and you have a lot of these good young players and young veterans to build upon with. So I think that it's going to be up for grabs, and I think another good draft and some solid pickups in free agency, and they're going to be in it to win it. And the schedule next year is, well, basing it off like this year's teams, 9 teams with a losing record and only 4 teams in the playoffs, and one of those teams is an 8-9 division winner. So it's going to be up for grabs. It's going to be up for grabs, but it all depends on how they take care of their offseason with this offense, because this offense could use some playmakers.
Did the Saints have a successful season in 2025?
I do. I picked them to go 5-12 this year. And I don't know what the prediction I want to give yet, obviously, but I think it's going to be at least three more wins next year.
That would be good, and that puts you closer to the playoffs, maybe even better than that. We hope so. There's certainly a renewed sense of optimism, which we desperately needed after the last 15 months or so. So we appreciate it, Sharief. We'll talk next week.
All right, Hunt, you can answer this question as we hang up.
Okay.
Are we going to have a quarterback by the end of the day?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. All right.
That's my next segment, so we'll do that when we come back. That's Sharief Ishaq from WDSU. I want to remind you about our friends at Fabry Chevrolet DMC, Highway 61 in St. Francisville. It's under new ownership now. Under new ownership. Building's been there, been a car dealership, but now the Fabry family in charge there of Chevrolet GMC, and so excited to be a part of that community. If you're in St. Francisville, stop on by and say hey. If you're in Baton Rouge and looking for a Chevy, looking for a GMC, whether it's new or pre-owned, you can stop by Fabry Chevrolet GMC. Fabry family's been in business in the Baton Rouge area for 35 years. This is just their next venture over at Chevrolet GMC on Highway 61 in St. Francisville. Looking for a Tahoe, Silverado, Suburban, Chevy side, they got you covered. Sierra, Yukon, Denali, find that on the GMC side as well. You can find the entire inventory at FabryChevrolet.com, so I invite you to head over there and check that out. If you want to go see it in person, make that short drive over to St. Francisville. You know, every time you deal with a Fabry family, you're going to deal with a family that's got incredible history of customer service, a great relationship with the community, and is going to do everything they can to make your experience as pleasant as possible. So go by and see them in St. Francisville, Highway 61. It's Fabry Chevrolet GMC. All right, Sam Levitt, let's talk about it. When we come back, we will.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Highland Insurance Group, HighlandIG.com is that website. Captives. It's a new year. If you're looking for some different creative solutions to your insurance program, a captive may be that solution. If you're a business owner, you've never seen what a captive looks like or understood how a captive functions, maybe your current broker doesn't have access to a captive. Maybe your current broker doesn't have an understanding of a captive. That's not the case at Highland Insurance Group. Jonathan Carbo and his team are phenomenal when it comes to handling captives, getting fits, and getting clients into captives. And it can absolutely be a game changer on the risk management side financially. Because if you've got great loss history, you've got great risk management, you may be a fit. So call the Highland Insurance Group. Check them out online at HighlandIG.com. Say, hey, I heard Hunt talking about captives. I'm not real sure about it, but I'd like to sit down and talk about it. The team at the Highland Insurance Group be happy to do that with you. They're here in Baton Rouge. They can help you out statewide. Just call Jonathan Carbo and his team at the Highland Insurance Group. Find them online at HighlandIG.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
right, closing out hour number one. Appreciate Sharief Ishaq for jumping in, giving us a little Saints discussion. Let's shift things back to LSU and the transfer portal. The two additions from today, LSU picked up a safety commitment from Boise State named Ty Benefield. Ty Benefield been a really productive player at Boise State for the last couple of seasons. Over 100 tackles this year, couple of interceptions, and is a guy with a 6'2" frame that can really fit into the back end of LSU's defense. And then you add in Stephylan Green, who is a defensive tackle from Clemson, 6'4", 290, started 6 games for Clemson this year on the defensive line, started against LSU, had 6 tackles in that game. So those are the two additions today thus far. I would expect there will be more today. The question is, will one of those additions be Sam Leavitt, quarterback from Arizona State? With the understanding that nothing is for sure, with the understanding that things change, with the understanding that there are agents involved in other schools that can pick up the phone and dollar amounts can change all the time, I'm not rubber stamping anything here. But it would surprise me if Sam Leavitt was not an LSU Tiger. It would surprise me. Would it stun me? Would it shock me? It would not. It would surprise me if Sam Leavitt was not an LSU Tiger. Leavitt got to Baton Rouge yesterday. He was entertained by the staff last night, still on campus today, and going through everything. And it's apparent that this is LSU's number one target at the quarterback position. Trinidad Chambliss obviously was going to be someone that LSU was extremely interested in for obvious reasons. Then you had Brendan Sorsby, who was very much being courted by LSU, and Texas Tech stepped up there. Had a little built-in advantage with the girlfriend there on the volleyball team, but also tossed $5 million his way, so that's where he'll land. And at this point, you start to look around the transfer portal, and you realize that Leavitt looks to be the best prospect there. Now, you never know. There's always a Trinidad Chambliss that pops up out of nowhere, a Diego Pavia that pops up out of nowhere, a guy from off the radar that shows up that stars. Like, that happens all the time. But if you're looking for the most proven commodity on the board, Leavitt is it. And I will not go through this segment burying the Liz Frank surgery, because that's an important aspect to this. That is a significant risk. It's a significant downside to Sam Leavitt coming to LSU if that does come to pass, because he's not going to be able to practice until the end of the summer. That's a big deal. But when you watch Sam Leavitt's tape, and then you have watched Lane Kiffin offenses really for a decade, if you're a college football fan, watching him at Ole Miss for the 6 years, and then you paid attention at Alabama for 3, like, you've seen him operate an offense for about 10 years, and you know what he asks his quarterbacks to do. And you know that there's a lot of quick passes. You know that there's a lot of read option stuff. You know that there's a lot of taking shots. And you know that the quarterback's asked to run a little bit. And Leavitt does all of that really well. Is he a perfect quarterback? No. Am I calling him Jaden Daniels or Joe Burrow? No. Do I think in Lane Kiffin's offense, given an adequate amount of weapons, that Sam Leavitt could be really dynamic in what LSU does if he is healthy the way that he has been at Arizona State for 2 years? Absolutely. I think that a lot. I don't know. That's a poor adjective to use there, but I think that. And I think it's going to happen. And here's a little small, this is a sunshine pumper take, I think, but I'm aware of it. I'm spinning this. I'm out in front spinning this. Perhaps signing Leavitt to be your starter with that injury opens the window for a more capable second quarterback to have interest. Hey, we've signed Leavitt. I think he's going to start, but he can't practice in the spring. You'll get all the reps. If you want to come here, here's the revenue sharing and the NIL that we can prepare for you. You get all the reps in the spring. You'll get better in my offense. You've got LSU right here. And look, if Leavitt's not ready to go come the first football game, like, you might have an opportunity to play. And if he gets hurt again, like, you'll have an opportunity to play. Our quarterback got hurt last year at Ole Miss. LSU's quarterback got hurt last year. Both of them had backups go out there. So maybe this is a bit of a sweetener for the second quarterback. Because make no mistake, you can't just sign Sam Leavitt and go, all right, got a quarterback. What? Okay, offensive line. Let's go get some more wide receivers. We need a pass rusher. You got to go get more quarterbacks because you would have one if Levitt came. So you have to get more. So maybe Levitt not practicing in the spring opens the door for the next guy to get those reps, to impress the coaching staff, to improve as a player, and to potentially be lined up to be next. Now, Levitt would have 2 years of eligibility that he could use if he wanted to. So there are complicated situations everywhere. But I'm trying to twist that a little bit, maybe reaching just a little bit to get there. But it's not like a completely ridiculous thought, no. It's a lot of reps that are available that Levitt won't be able to take. So in summation, my guess, and I'm going to call it that, my guess is that Sam Levitt is committed to LSU before the end of the day today. That's my guess. If it doesn't happen, will I fall out of my chair? No. He might go visit Miami when they're done playing. Doesn't have to be in a hurry. If he wants to go visit Miami, they're going to Arizona today. So he's not going to be visiting Miami today because their coaching staff's gone. But once they get back, if he wants to go there, that wouldn't stun anybody. It's a leveraging play, negotiation play. But I think he's going to wrap things up. I don't think LSU is going to want him to go to Miami to check things out. I think they're going to want to get that deal done today, and I got a feeling like it will be. So we'll see. We'll certainly report on it on LouisianaSports.net. I got an hour and 5 minutes to go. Then Matt's got 3 hours after that. If something happens, you'll know about it here as well. So appreciate y'all for following along. We got a roster tracker on LouisianaSports.net. Stories up every time a commitment breaks and breakdowns of those players daily. All there for free on LouisianaSports.net. We'll talk some hoops when we come back. Still got more college football to talk as well. It's a Tuesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Swing Easy Golf Club in Baton Rouge. SwingEasyGCBR.com. I don't know if you can play golf with a Liz Frank injury. Probably not. So maybe they didn't take Sam Levitt to Swing Easy Golf Club, but they could have because it's an awesome place to hang out. You go over to Swing Easy Golf Club, you get that private bay. You can turn the music up, watch some TV if you want, watch games. And you can go in there and hit some golf shots. You can play against your friends at famous courses from around the world on the simulator, or you can practice, work on your game. Hang out. They got a cold beer available for you. They got a seltzer available for you. They got wine available for you. They got memberships available for you. If you've always wanted a place to call your own, to go work on your golf game, to go play some golf, this may not be the traditional way that you've always thought, but they've got memberships available. They've also got corporate memberships if you want to entertain clients there and hang out. Swing Easy Golf Club is an awesome place to do that. They're on Segan, near Perkins. On Segan, near Perkins. You can find them online at swingeasygcbr.com. It's Swing Easy Golf Club right here in Baton Rouge.